They said the pressure of Paris would be too much. They said he was a chaotic talent, a maverick who could never fit into a team of superstars. They were wrong. When PSG signed Khvicha Kvaratskhelia, they didn't just get a world-class winger, they forged a national hero. This is the story of the transfer that created a legend, the treble triumph that silenced the doubters, and the Champions League goal that echoed across an entire nation. This wasn't just a goal, it was the moment a winger became a warrior, the moment a transfer became a coronation, and the moment Kvicha Kvaratskhelia became immortal. But to really get how a multi-million euro signing became the soul of a club and the pride of a country, you have to understand the journey that forged him. The Georgian Dream. Tucked between the Caucasus Mountains and the Black Sea, football has always been more than just a game. It's a language of identity, a declaration of existence on the world stage. Since declaring independence in 1991, Georgia has been searching for a hero to carry its flag into the pantheon of European football. And they'd seen titans before. Murtaz Kurtsalava captained the great Soviet Union side of the 60s. The legendary Khvicha Kvaratskhelia lifted the Champions League trophy with AC Milan, a monumental achievement. But Georgia craved an artist, a creator, an attacking force who played with the nation's heart on his sleeve. Enter Kvicha Kvaratskhelia. Born in Tbilisi, the son of a footballer, you could tell Kvicha was different. He played with a wild, untamed joy, a style forged on the streets of the capital and sharpened in the youth setups of clubs like Dinamo Tbilisi. He was a throwback, a dribbler who saw defenders not as obstacles, but as invitations to dance. For a country with a rich, complex history, Kvara's football was an expression of freedom. It was audacious, unpredictable, and unapologetically Georgian. His destiny felt preordained. His early performances for Georgia's youth teams were electric, and soon every major club in the region knew his name. But his path wouldn't be a straight line. His first big move took him to Russia, but his time there was cut short, forcing a return to his homeland with Dinamo Batumi. For a moment, the dream of European glory seemed to be drifting away. But for those watching closely in Georgia, this wasn't a step back. It was a homecoming. Stadiums sold out to see him play, with fans desperate to catch a glimpse of the boy who held their hopes. He was no longer just a player, he was a national phenomenon, and one club in Italy had been paying very close attention: the crucible of doubt. When Napoli signed Kvicha Kvaratskhelia for a fee reportedly around $13 million in 2022, few in mainstream European football batted an eye. He was seen as a raw talent from a minor league, a gamble. That perception lasted about 90 minutes. In his debut season in Italy, Kvaratskhelia didn't just adapt, he exploded. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of step-overs and feints that left Serie A's famously stubborn defenses in tatters. With 12 goals and a staggering 13 assists, he was the creative engine behind Napoli's first league title in 33 years, ending a drought that stretched back to the days of Diego Maradona. The city of Naples had found a new god. They christened him Kvaradona. His image hung from balconies, murals were painted on city walls, and a new generation of kids in southern Italy had a Georgian name on the back of their shirts. He was named Serie A's most valuable player and the Champions League's young player of the season. His rise was a footballing fairy tale. At the same time, he was elevating his nation. In the 2022-23 Nations League, he was unstoppable, scoring 5 goals, leading Georgia to promotion, and becoming the first player in Georgian history to score in 4 consecutive matches for the national team. The message was clear: Kvara wasn't just a club star, he was the talisman his country was building its future around. But with great success comes even greater scrutiny. The whispers began. Was he a one-season wonder? Could this chaotic style work at a true super club where egos are colossal? The Kvaradona nickname, once a celebration, was now used by critics as a burden. The romance of Naples was beautiful, but Paris is a different beast, a city known for chewing up and spitting out even the biggest stars. In January 2025, when Paris Saint-Germain came calling with a deal worth 70 million plus bonuses, the world held its breath. This wasn't just a transfer, it was a test, the Parisian Gambit. The move to Paris Saint-Germain in January 2025 was a seismic event. For years, PSG had chased the Champions League by assembling squads of individual Galacticos. But under manager Luis Enrique, the philosophy was shifting toward the collective, high-intensity pressing and relentless work rate. On the surface, Kvaratskhelia, the dribbling maverick, seemed an odd fit. Critics lined up to call it a mistake. They fundamentally misunderstood both the manager and the player. Luis Enrique didn't want to tame Kvara, he wanted to unleash him. He saw not just a dribbler, but a brilliant transitional threat and a relentless presser. And Kvara, far from being just a soloist, possessed an astonishing footballing intelligence. He slotted into his familiar role on the left wing, but his responsibilities were multiplied. He became a primary trigger for PSG's high press, hounding defenders and forcing turnovers high up the pitch. In attack, his instructions were simple: get the ball, isolate your man, and create chaos. The adaptation was immediate and devastating. In the second half of the season, PSG became a different animal. They were no longer a collection of stars, but a cohesive, suffocating unit with Kvaratskhelia as their agent of disruption. He helped power them to the Ligue 1 title, becoming the first Georgian ever to win the French league. They followed it with the Coupe de France, securing a domestic double and making him the first Georgian to win that trophy too. But the real test, the one that had haunted the club for years, was the Champions League. This year was different. Steve played with a newfound grit. Through the knockouts, Kvaratskhelia was a revelation, working tirelessly for the team. They had reached the final in Munich, where a wily Inter Milan awaited. The stage was set for PSG to exercise their demons, and for Kvaratskhelia, it was a date with destiny. The story of Kvaratskhelia's journey is the kind of football narrative we live for, a testament to how one player can change a team's destiny. If you're enjoying this deep dive, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We bring you the most in-depth stories from the beautiful game every week. Now, back to Munich, the Coronation. The Allianz Arena in Munich was a cauldron of noise. On one side, Inter Milan, the grizzled veterans. On the other, desperate to finally claim the continent's ultimate prize. Tonight, they played with a swagger that felt different. From the first whistle, PSG were dominant. Luis Enrique's system clicked into perfect harmony. The pressing was suffocating, the movement was slick, and the attack was relentless. They blew Inter away in a 5-0 demolition, the largest margin of victory in Champions League final history. It was a performance so complete, it signaled a changing of the guard in European football. And in the middle of it all, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia delivered his defining moment. With PSG already in command, the ball found him on the left flank. He faced his man, that familiar sight of a defender backpedaling. Kvara feinted inside, then exploded to the byline, a blur of grace and power. He cut back onto his right foot, creating just a sliver of space. From a tight angle, he unleashed a ferocious shot that ripped into the roof of the net. It was PSG's fourth goal, but it was more than that. It was the exclamation point on a historic season. It was the culmination of a journey that started on the streets of Tbilisi and ended at the absolute pinnacle of club football. With that strike, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia became the first Georgian ever to score in a major UEFA club competition final. As the final whistle blew, he joined Khvicha Kvaratskhelia as only the second Georgian to ever lift the Champions League trophy. But his season held one more incredible distinction. Because he had played for Napoli before his January transfer, he was officially eligible for their league title, which they sealed in May 2025. This meant Kvaratskhelia ended the season as a champion in both Italy and France, while also winning the continental treble with PSG, a feat of breathtaking rarity. The doubters were silenced. A star had become a legend, the national hero. When Kvicha Kvaratskhelia returned to Georgia for international duty, he was no longer just the nation's best player. He was a conquering hero. The scenes at Tbilisi airport were extraordinary. Thousands of fans draped in the national flag, there to welcome him home. This wasn't just about celebrating a trophy, it was about celebrating what he represented. Their son now stood at the very top of the world's most popular sport. The impact on the national team was profound. Just training alongside a player who had dismantled Inter Milan in a Champions League final created an unbreakable sense of belief in the squad. He was like Mo Salah to Egypt or Gareth Bale to Wales, a symbol of possibility. Every time he took the pitch for Georgia, it was an event. He was the embodiment of a new generation. on one unafraid to compete with the giants of the game. The transfer to PSG hadn't just brought him trophies, it had transformed how Georgia saw itself in the footballing world. The kid from Tbilisi who conquered Naples and then Paris had done more than win a treble. He had given his country a hero for the ages. The final image of that season isn't just him lifting the Champions League trophy, but him standing on the pitch in Tbilisi, hand on his heart, singing the national anthem. In that moment, the club superstar and the national icon were one and the same. The transfer hadn't just forged a legend for PSG, it had forged a hero for Georgia forever.